As I've indicated, our international news editor, Sophie Mokoena, joining us for this conversation and to continue on the conversation. Starting off with where we just left off this conversation, of course, what transpired in Kenya. The announcement that has been made by M23 and also anticipation of possibly seeing a cessation.
Yes, you are correct. You know that they went to Kenya, they made this announcement, and that didn't sit well with the current president, Tshisekedi. But the irony is that he did the same previously when he was contesting in 2018. In fact, he even came to South Africa. He granted me exclusive interview and he was speaking outside the country. He was lobbying. Now, this time around, he's aggrieved, but he did the same in 2018. Secondly, remember, he didn't win the elections outright. It is thanks to the former president of the DRC, Joseph Kabila, who gave him the votes, and then he became the president. And therefore, that matter was always going to be a problem. And we saw after elections that the M23 rebels in the eastern part of the DRC continued with this problem. But I think, Aldrin, let's listen at what the former South African president, Thabo Mbeki, had to say about the eastern part of the Congo, the issue of Rwanda, and the accusations that Paul Kagame is involved. How does the former president of South Africa, who was involved, you remember he brought the Congolese to Sun City for the dialogues, characterize that issue and how it can be resolved? And also the Minister of International Relations in relation to what can be the role of the world body, UN, in maintenance of peace, and also the continental body, the AU, in maintenance of peace, but also the regional organizations. Let's listen to these two issues. Perhaps you can have a better way of taking also this matter forward in terms of how do you bring peace in the Great Lakes region. Let's take a listen.
The Congolese government must take responsibility to say we are Congolese together. There are no Banyamulenge in the Congo who are foreigners. So anybody who tries to do anything to threaten the Banyamulenge, we, the government of the Congo, will act against that. The problem would be solved.
I really think as the AU, as the UN, we need to look at the serious issue of reform and address this inadequacy, because it cannot continue to be accepted that innocent civilians are killed, are maimed, communities are destroyed because we don't have the ability to intervene.
Yeah. And just listening into what the former president had to say there and the Minister of International Relations is the question around Rwanda as well. Felix Tshisekedi has said as part of his election campaign as well that if it gets re-elected, he will declare a war on Rwanda. What is the possibility of that actually transpiring?
He's just calling for trouble. That entire Great Lakes region will be engulfed into a civil war. We've been there before. Madiba previously tried to intervene, and his successor, Mbeki, did the same, even brought the Congolese to Sun City. South Africa spent a lot of money assisting the Congolese to find one another and to ensure that there's peace and security in the Great Lakes region. We even deployed our own forces there. And MONUSCO was the leader in this deployment. And it even went to a situation where it was an intervention force because everybody was trying to ensure that there's peace and security in the eastern part of Congo. But as the former president pointed out, political will. You must have a political will. And as Chris pointed out, you must have a leader that is prepared to unite the Congolese, irrespective of the region or the grouping. And therefore, if you don't have a leader who is committed to building that country and knowing that his country is part of the region. I mean, today, Aldrin, Robert Luther is waiting at the barracks in Kenya because those EAC forces that have been expelled by government will be returning back to EAC. He joined the EAC. He voluntarily joined EAC. Now he's fighting with leaders of the EAC and now using SADC because he is also a member of the SADC. And therefore, I think SADC must be very, very careful in terms of what's likely going to happen after these elections. I hope SADC is up to the task.
What then do you make of the Eastern Community Bloc not having observers being part of these elections.
Exactly. Why do you join EAC and you say they can't observe your elections? Why did you take the trouble? I remember at one point there was a conference of the CEO of Africa. He went to Rwanda. He was there with Paul Kagame reaching out saying, no, I'm going to do things differently and we are going to work together. And later, of course, he did join the EAC, which Rwanda is part of. But here we are now. And remember, the Eastern community, the countries are his neighbor.
Yeah.
SADC, yes, but the close communities are the ones from East Africa. And therefore, you must be at peace with your own neighbors. Just imagine Lesotho being part of the SADC, a landlocked country in South Africa, deciding to join West Africa. And then when things are a bit difficult, then you say, no, SADC mustn't be involved. I'll only listen to West Africa. So you are actually even creating animosity in relation to the regional blocs that are supposed to integrate and be a continent that's
just
united.
Quickly on the elections and what's transpiring now, it seems as though that the foundation has already been laid for a disputed elections, considering what the opposition are saying. What do you see what do you foresee will happen if the elections are disputed? Instability.
Because, I mean, look what happened yesterday and look what the oppositions are saying today. And therefore, I don't know how SADC is going to handle this one, because SADC was supposed to act long time ago. And AU was supposed to act long time ago to ensure that the environment is conducive for elections. You don't create a situation where elections can be contested, because when you create a situation where elections are contested, you will never find stability in your country. Whether you can get into that government, your country will never find peace or prosper. And when the country can't prosper, you know what happens when people are poor. They become restless. They leave their country. You are just creating a instability for both EAC and also for SADC. Because as we speak, I'm sure many people are already leaving certain parts of the Congo, fearing that there will be this tension.
Thank you so much for your time. That is SABC News International News Editor, Sophie Mokoena, on developments that are currently playing out in the DRC and also expectations. Remember that following the delays yesterday and also some of the polling stations not opening, the Electoral Commission has decided to extend election day into today, and the opposition are arguing that that is against the law. So the foundation has already been laid for an election result that will be disputed once declared by the Electoral Commission.